Is this some kind of joke? The voice cut through the desert air, sharp and dripping with the misplaced confidence of youth. Corporal Evans, barely past his teenage years but wearing his Marine Corps uniform like a shield, gestured dismissively toward the rifle resting on the shooting bench. "Sir, you can't possibly be serious about bringing that thing here." Alan Palmer, whose 82 years were etched deep in the lines of his face and the firm set of his jaw, didn't respond. He kept his eyes fixed on the distance, where the heat rose in shimmering waves from the scorched earth, turning the far-off targets into ghostly mirages. He sat on a plain stool, relaxed in posture yet firmly anchored to the earth. The rifle beside him was an oddity, its custom-built chassis and stock finished in a flat, non-reflective orange, the shade of a construction sign or a child's toy. It looked absurd alongside the matte blacks, desert tans, and olive drabs of the serious military-grade gear that filled the long-distance range. A young private first class with freckles across his nose snickered. Maybe he thinks it's a water gun, Corporal, so he can stay hydrated. The small cluster of Marines in crisp uniforms and high and tight haircuts laughed. They were the latest generation, adept with digital scopes and ballistic calculators, and to them the old man and his garish rifle were curiosities from a bygone era, a brief amusement before real training began. Evans stepped closer, his shadow cutting across Palmer's bench. "I'm going to have to ask you to pack up, sir. This is a live-fire range for active duty. We're running advanced sniper training." He jabbed a finger at the orange weapon. "That thing is a distraction and a safety hazard." His tone was practiced, half authority, half condescension, the sort of voice young men use when they feel they hold all the power. Alan Palmer said nothing. His hands rested quietly on his knees. His stillness unnerved Evans more than any rebuttal could. It was an unnatural hush, a depth of patience that felt like a silent reproach. The range, an expanse of graded dirt and rock carved out of the Mojave, normally thrummed with thunderous noise and exacting violence. But in that small bubble of confrontation, an uneasy quiet settled. Nearby shooters paused, conversations trailing off as they watched the one-sided exchange. The air crackled with a tension that had nothing to do with ballistics. Misreading Palmer's silence as defiance, Evans pushed harder and broke a basic rule of range etiquette. "Did you hear me, old man? Pack it up! What are you even doing here? This isn't a VFW bingo night." He dropped his voice to a conspiratorial whisper, loud enough for all to hear. "You probably don't even have the proper clearance for this facility." Slowly, Alan moved. He reached for a simple canvas range bag. The motion was deliberate. The Marines braced, expecting compliance. Instead, he produced a worn leather wallet, softened by decades of use, opened it, and removed a laminated card, his base access permit, which he held out without a word. Evans snatched the card and studied it, then blinked in disbelief. He turned it over as if the plastic might dissolve and expose a forgery. The name read Palmer, Alan J., and the credentials were, to his mounting frustration, in perfect order. He shoved the card back. Without a legitimate reason to eject him, Evans only grew more irritated. "Fine, you have access," he said tightly. "But that doesn't mean you can bring your toys here. We've got a 4,000-meter target set up for final qualification. It's a multi-million-dollar sensor suite, not a backstop for your personal science project." He pointed to a target so distant it was barely a speck. "We're pushing modern tech here. The last thing we need is a stray round messing up our data." Emboldened by his corporal's aggression, the private reached out and jabbed the orange stock with a finger. "Feels like cheap plastic. You 3D printed this in your garage." The instant his finger touched the rifle, something in Palmer's eyes snapped. For a fraction of a second, the veteran's calm, patient gaze hardened into something flinty and ancient. The bright desert glare and the smirks around him dissolved into the dim, urgent light of a field tent reeking of cordite and blood. He felt the phantom weight of a wounded comrade at his side, heard mortar fire crawling closer, and a young, strained voice echoed in his head. "They're coming, Al. You have to finish it." The orange, so they could find him. So the rescue chopper could spot him in the canopy. A single point of unnatural color in a sea of green. The memory receded. The desert sun and the Marines returned. Palmer still did not move or speak, but something in his posture had shifted. The quiet dignity now carried an edge, an immense gravity barely restrained. Nearby, Gunny Miller, the retired master sergeant serving as the civilian range safety officer, watched with a narrowing gaze. He'd seen brash NCOs before, but this felt different. The man at the bench was no ordinary hobbyist. His economy of motion and absolute stillness hinted at a lifetime of discipline. The rifle's clean, purposeful lines suggested a tool, not a toy. Miller's mind flicked to a classified briefing from years past about a ghostly legend scarcely mentioned in history books. He checked the sign-in sheet. Palmer, Alan J. The name matched, and a cold knot settled in his gut. Miller pulled out his phone and, with his back to the scene, scrolled his contacts until he found the base's command duty officer. Calling was a risk. He could be overstepping his civilian remit and get himself fired, but something told him he had to act. "Lieutenant," he said when the line connected, his voice low and urgent, "this is Gunny Miller at the long-range facility. I have a situation. Some Marines from 1st Recon are giving an old-timer a hard time. They're about to cross a line." The voice on the other end sounded professional and dismissive. "Shouldn't that go through their company command?" "Normally, yes," Miller answered, patience fraying. "But the civilian is Alan Palmer." A pause, static. The lieutenant's breath caught. "Palmer? Am I supposed to know that name?" Miller hardened his tone. "Run it up the chain, fast. Tell them it's about his rifle, the orange one." He hung up before further questions could come. He had lit the fuse. Now all he could do was hope it didn't blow everyone up. Inside the climate-controlled base command center, Lieutenant Harris stared at his phone. Gunny Miller didn't call without cause. He typed Alan J. Palmer into the global personnel database. The system spun, then flagged the name, a bright red alert. Access restricted, eyes only, 07 and above. Harris felt an electric jolt. 7 corresponded to a brigadier general. He was only a second lieutenant. He rose briskly and went to the base commander's office. "Sir, you need to see this," he said. Colonel Price, a man whose face mapped decades of desert conflicts, looked up, annoyed. Harris swallowed. Gunny Miller called from the long range. "Alan Palmer is out there." The system flagged him. Color drained from the colonel's face. He didn't speak. He picked up the secure line that went directly to the commanding general's office. "Ma'am, this is Colonel Price. I apologize for the interruption." "Sir, Palmer is on our range right now." He listened, face grim. "Yes, ma'am. The ghost of the valley, he's in a confrontation with 1st Recon Marines." The colonel's expression hardened. "Yes, ma'am. I'll meet you at your vehicle." "We're rolling now." He slammed the phone down, eyes blazing at Harris. "Get me 1st Recon's commander on the line. Tell him his career's on the line. Tell him General Marcus is en route and God help his Marines." Back at the range, Corporal Evans's patience had completely unraveled. The old man's calm defiance felt like a personal affront, an open challenge to his authority. A small crowd had gathered, and Evans could feel his credibility slipping away, his image as a proud Marine NCO undermined by an octogenarian with a ridiculous orange rifle. He had to end it. "That's it," he snapped, his voice cracking under the strain of anger. "I'm done asking. You're endangering this facility and my Marines. I'm ordering you to leave this firing point immediately. If you refuse, I'll have you detained for trespassing and obstructing a training exercise. Maybe we'll even get you evaluated. Sounds like you're confused, old man." "Maybe you forgot where you are." He stepped forward, reaching for Alan Palmer's shoulder to forcibly remove him, but never made contact. A low rumble vibrated through the ground, growing rapidly into the deafening roar of engines pushed to their limits. Every head turned toward the access road as a cloud of dust rose behind a convoy of 3 black government-plated SUVs and a lead Humvee tearing toward the range at breakneck speed. They didn't slow as they passed the parking area, instead veering directly onto the firing grounds and skidding to a stop mere yards from the confrontation. The dust was still swirling when the doors flew open. Armed personnel stepped out with disciplined precision, moving with an urgency that made the young Marines look like rookies. From the lead SUV emerged Colonel Price. But it was the figure who stepped out of the second vehicle that froze everyone in place. Brigadier General Marcus. Her reputation preceded her. Iron-willed, battle-hardened, and revered. Her immaculate uniform gleamed beneath the desert sun, the single silver star on her shoulder bright as fire. Her sharp eyes swept across the scene, Evans's tense posture, the bewildered faces of his men, and then fixed on the calm, seated figure of Alan Palmer. Without a word, she strode directly toward him. The entire range fell silent. Only the crunch of her boots and the faint pinging of cooling engines broke the stillness. Evans stood motionless, his hand hovering mid-air, too stunned to comprehend what was unfolding. General Marcus stopped in front of Alan Palmer. She didn't speak at first. Then, with a sharp snap of her heels and a crisp motion, she delivered the most flawless salute Evans had ever seen. It wasn't the casual salute of duty, but one of reverence, a soldier's tribute to a legend. "Mr. Palmer," she said, her voice strong and clear across the range. "It is an honor, sir. I apologize for the conduct of my Marines. They had no idea who they were addressing." Alan Palmer slowly rose from his stool, his posture straight and unbending despite his age. He gave her a slight nod of acknowledgement. Only then did the general lower her salute. She turned to Evans, her gaze icy. "Corporal," she said in a tone so calm it was terrifying, "do you have any idea who this man is?" Evans's mouth went dry. "No, ma'am, he's a civilian." "A civilian?" The general gave a short, humorless laugh. "Corporal, you and your men stand on ground you haven't earned, breathing air bought by those who came before you. This man," she turned back toward Palmer, "is Alan Palmer. The name alone hung in the air like thunder. For those too young or too ignorant to know," she continued, her voice rising, "this man holds our nation's highest civilian award for valor. He served as a special projects consultant for DARPA for 30 years. Before that, he fought in places your textbooks don't even mention. 5 confirmed kills beyond 2,500 yards, each one with a rifle he designed and built himself. He's the reason our sniper doctrine exists as it does today." Her eyes narrowed. "We called him the ghost of the valley, not because he died there, but because he went where no one else could, completed missions no one else would dare, and vanished without a trace." She gestured to the orange rifle. "And this toy you mocked? This is the Mark V prototype, the foundation for the M210 sniper system you're carrying, Corporal. Except this one's better. He built it in a forward base from scrap aluminum and salvaged parts. That bright orange paint you laughed at? It wasn't decoration. It was so medevac could find him after he held off an entire platoon alone for 3 days protecting a downed pilot. That color saved lives, including the pilot's, who went on to become a 4-star general. The silence that followed was absolute. Evans looked as though he might collapse under the weight of shame. His Marines, once snickering, stood stiff and pale, their eyes fixed on the ground. General Marcus's voice dropped to a low, cold growl. "You didn't see a veteran. You saw an old man. You didn't see history. You saw a toy. You saw weakness where you should have seen strength. You've disgraced your uniform, your corps, and yourselves." Her finger leveled at him like a weapon. "You and your squad will report to my office at 600 tomorrow. You're getting a personal lesson in Marine Corps history and respect, and you won't forget it." When her words faded, Alan Palmer finally spoke. His tone was quiet, yet commanding. "General," he said softly, "they're young. They're proud. That's a good thing. They just need to learn where to aim it." He turned his gaze to Evans. There was no anger, only weary understanding. "Your job isn't to be the strongest, son. It's to honor the strength that came before you. Humility weighs more than any rucksack, but it'll carry you farther." He rested his hand on the orange rifle. Another memory flickered, years ago in a muddy field workshop. He was younger, steady-handed, machining the receiver while a wounded pilot lay nearby. "Why orange, Al?" the pilot had asked weakly. Alan hadn't looked up. "Because I only plan on making one shot," he'd said. "After that, I want to be easy to find one way or another." That single decision captured who he was. A man who built his own beacon, whether for rescue or remembrance, anchored in courage beyond comprehension. The aftermath was swift. General Marcus kept her word. Evans and his squad spent a month on remedial duty, cleaning the base museum's artifacts by day, studying Medal of Honor biographies by night. No punishment could have taught humility more effectively. The story of the old man with the orange rifle spread like wildfire, a cautionary tale against arrogance and a reminder that true heroes often walk among us, unnoticed. Soon after, the base issued a mandate: annual training on veteran interaction and respect. Weeks later, Evans found himself in the base library, reading declassified reports from long-forgotten conflicts. The door opened, Alan Palmer stepped inside, heading toward the engineering section. Evans's heart raced. He stood quickly, straight-backed and nervous. "Mr. Palmer," he said quietly. "Sir, I wanted to apologize. There's no excuse for what I did. I was arrogant and wrong. I'm sorry." Palmer studied him for a moment, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, the pride stripped away, replaced by growth. A small smile crossed his face. "I told you, son," he said gently. "Humility looks good on you. You wear it well." The two men shared a silent nod of respect. The lesson had been learned. A week later, the range closed for a private demonstration. General Marcus, Colonel Price, and several senior officers stood watching. Evans and his squad waited quietly nearby. Alan Palmer lay prone behind his orange rifle. Without fanfare, he adjusted his scope, gauged the wind, and became perfectly still, part of the landscape itself. Then a single sharp crack echoed through the air. Seconds passed. Then the monitor at the general's side lit up. A green dot, dead center of the 4,000-meter target. A perfect bullseye. Gasps rippled through the crowd. It wasn't just a remarkable shot, it was impossible. The legend of the Ghost of the Valley wasn't history anymore. It was alive, breathing, and standing right before them. If Alan Palmer's story of quiet strength and hidden valor moved you, please like and share this video to honor those who serve. Subscribe to Veteran Valor for more stories of the unsung heroes who built the world we live in. Your support helps us keep their legacy alive.